Hello and welcome. One of the questions I get asked the most is what kit I take with me whilst out camping. So let's get started. I'll show you through a little what's in my bag video. So to begin with, probably the most important item whilst you're out camping would be a tent. The one that I use most of the time during the winter would be this MSR Access 2. That's a fantastic tent. It's a 4-season, 2-man tent, and it's a very comfortable tent to be in for a couple of days. It comfortably fits 2 people with big bags full of kit. So yeah, plenty of room in this tent. Nice and lightweight. Yeah, no complaints really with the tent. The one downside I would say is when I first got this tent, it didn't come with enough tent pegs and it didn't come with enough guy lines, but that just seems to be something that happens with every MSR tent. They never give you enough tent pegs and they never give you enough guy lines. But apart from that, yeah, fantastic tent. I'm very happy with it. To go along with the tent, I've also got a footprint. Now this is basically just to protect the bottom of the tent. If I'm camping anywhere where there's sort of rockier, harder ground, or if it's particularly wet and boggy, it just gives you an extra layer of protection underneath the tent. It is quite expensive, this little accessory, so whether you need one or not, I'm not sure, but it'd certainly protect the bottom of your tent, stop you from getting holes in. And yeah, on wet ground they're really useful as well. So that's my tent. Now I've had it for 2.5, 3 years now, I think, and yeah, I've not really had any problems at all with it. Fantastic tent. Next up, sleeping mat. Now this is probably one of the most important things. If you don't have a good sleeping mat, you're not going to have a good night's sleep. Because it's what protects you from sort of the cold ground. So if you get one of these whilst you're out camping, you're not going to have a good night. So the one that I take with me during the winter is the Thermarest X-Therm, Neo Air X-Therm I think it's called, the silver one. Fantastic little sleeping mat. It comes with a pump sack, which you can fill with air. You roll that up, all the air comes out this little hole here and into the sleeping mat. Now that's to stop you from sort of filling up the sleeping mat by blowing it up each time. So it saves a lot of time by using one of these. And also if you're constantly blowing into a sleeping mat, moisture's getting in there. There's no real way for moisture to get out. It eventually gets mouldy and they can delaminate. It has happened to one of mine before, but Thermarest have a fantastic warranty, so yeah, no problems at all with them. Really good sleeping mat, highly recommended. So that's the Thermarest Neo Air X-Therm, so super warm mat for the winter and very comfortable. The one downside to this sleeping mat would be that it's very noisy. So if there's 2 of you in a tent and you both have one of these, every time you roll over you wake the other person up. So it's a noisy sleeping mat, but then most of them are. So that's my sleeping mat. Now this thing here is just a larger pump sack for the sleeping bag which I purchased. The one that the sleeping mat comes with is a little bit small, so this one here is just a little bit bigger and it makes inflating the mat twice as fast, so that's a good bit of kit to have as well, and it kind of doubles up as a dry bag even though it's got a hole in the bottom. So yeah, quite handy for just sort of lining your backpack with. Next up, this beast, my sleeping bag. Now my sleeping bag is a Crux Torpedo 900. So Crux Torpedo 900. Super warm, relatively lightweight. Now it is a down sleeping bag, so it's lighter than a synthetic one. They generally tend to be slightly warmer as well. Now the downside to most down sleeping bags is that if they get wet, they don't insulate you as well, they get a bit soggy. So this one here, this Crux torpedo that I've got, it is a waterproof sleeping bag. So it has an E-vent shell which encases the kind of the down bag, which is also like a ripstop. So it protects the bag and also keeps you nice and dry as well. And it works really well. So I've bivvied on the top of Pibgor, where I had hoped to get a good sunrise. Turned out it rained most of the night, but in this sleeping bag it kept me nice and dry. Now it is extremely warm. I think the comfort rating for this sleeping bag is about -18, I believe. Now, comfort ratings on sleeping bags. I have 3 or 4 sleeping bags now. I have got another winter bag. Comfort rating is exactly the same as this one here, but it's nowhere near as warm. So yeah, don't always take those comfort ratings for granted because they're not always as warm. So yeah, fantastic bag. Next up, along with the sleeping bag, I always try and take a silk liner. So you climb into this and then into your sleeping bag. This basically adds an extra layer between you and the sleeping bag. Apparently it adds an extra degree of warmth, but the main sort of reason behind using one of these is to keep your sleeping bag nice and clean. So yeah, rather than constantly washing a sleeping bag, especially a down sleeping bag, which would be a bit of a nightmare if you're having to wash that all the time, using one of these just keeps it clean, and they're very easy to just chuck in the washing machine with everything else. And it's super lightweight and it packs down very, very small, so well worth having a silk liner. Next up, my MSR wind burner. Now this is what I use to boil water, to cook with, make hot drinks. It all packs down into this little pot, so it's super user friendly, very lightweight as well. And I really like how it all just kind of packs back in, so it doesn't take up much space in your bag. Now it boils water probably faster than your kettle would at home, so it's really quick. Probably the downside to it is you don't really want to cook in it because it's so thin. If you're cooking in this, so if you've got, say, anything with sort of pasta with a sauce or something in there, it tends to burn and stick to the bottom. So I generally just use these for boiling water to add to a dehydrated or boiling the bag meal. So yeah, MSR wind burner, really good bit of kit. I've had this for 3 years now. I previously had a jet boil, which I accidentally kicked off the side of the south ridge of Snowdon it was. So to compare the two, I think I prefer the MSR, but yeah, they're very similar, not much between them really. Next up, in my bag I'll always have an extra layer on top of what I already would have on whilst walking up. So a nice warm down jacket. The reason I've gone for a down jacket is that they are much more packable, so they compress much smaller than a standard sort of synthetic one. They do tend to be slightly more expensive, but having something that packs down small and is lighter when you've got all this other camping kit is really good, because having a heavy bag isn't nice. So down jacket for when you're at the top. Head torch, the one that I have is a Petzl Reactic Plus, I think it's called. I've had this for a couple of years now. It's never died on me. I've never needed an extra battery. The battery life is probably around 10 hours or so. But yeah, really good head torch. I've never had any problems within it, and I highly recommend it. So yeah, Petzl Reactic. Pestle Reactive Plus or something it's called, I think. A flask. I'll always take a little flask with me, especially during the winter, so you can always make yourself a mug of tea for the morning, so that's good to have a flask. I'll also take a couple of pairs of extra gloves, so I've got these big mitts here, really good. So if you're standing around like me, and I'll take a lot of photos, having a nice warm pair of mitts just means that everything's slightly more comfortable. And also a thin pair of liners as well. So those I'll use for taking photos and moving around if I need a bit more dexterity. A hat, always useful, especially if it's cold. A power pack, handy for charging your camera if the batteries die, or your phone. So power pack, always take one of those. Probably one of the most useful bits of kit is this roll of climbing tape I've got. I take this everywhere with me. It's perfect for fixing boots, or if you cut yourself, you can wrap yourself up in this. So yeah, climbing tape, it's useful for everything. You can repair anything with it. And then I'll just take loads of dry bags. Dry bags for keeping all your kit dry whilst you're setting up camp, walking up. If it starts to rain, there's nothing worse than all of your kit soaking wet in a tent. So yeah, dry bags to wrap everything up in to keep it all nice and dry. Now, that's pretty much everything that I'll take with me, and I'll put it all in this Crux AK 47 litre backpack. Now it is a kind of a dry bag, roll top style bag, and it keeps everything really nice and dry. Now it's not the lightest pack out there, but it's very comfortable, and because it's that sort of dry bag style bag, you're not going to have any problems with your kit getting damp. So yeah, that's my bag, and that's what's in my bag. Now I will do another video of what I have in my bag for just a standard day out, so not including any of the camping kit. So yeah, if you'd like to see more, hit the like button and subscribe. Cheers!